Imagine being the most powerful person in the world, then suddenly, enemies are knocking on your door from every direction. That's exactly what happened to Napoleon Bonaparte. After losing hundreds of thousands of soldiers in Russia, he faced an impossible challenge: defend France with mostly teenage boys against armies 6 times bigger than his own. But here's the shocking part. Instead of giving up, Napoleon pulled off one of the most brilliant military moves in history. In just 6 days, he defeated 4 different enemy armies and made everyone remember why people called him a military genius. Yet somehow, this amazing victory couldn't save his empire. Let's find out what happened. January 1814, and Napoleon's empire is falling apart. The Battle of Nations at Leipzig in October 1813 destroyed his main army. He lost nearly 300,000 men, with another 100,000 trapped in German cities, completely cut off from help. By the time he crossed back into France, Napoleon had only about 70,000 soldiers left from what used to be the most powerful army in the world. Now the real nightmare begins. Over 400,000 enemy soldiers from Britain, Austria, Prussia, Sweden, and Russia pour into France from 3 different directions. The biggest force, 156,868 men under Prince Schwarzenberg, attacks from the east. Field Marshal Blücher brings 77,100 soldiers from the north. Even more troops spread across the countryside. Against this massive invasion, Napoleon can only gather 70,000 men to defend the entire frontier from Strasbourg to the North Sea. That's odds of 6 to 1 against him. Imagine trying to fight 6 people at once. But here's what makes it even worse. Most of Napoleon's new soldiers aren't battle-tested veterans. They're called the Marie-Louises, teenage French boys, some only 14 years old and barely 5 feet tall. These kids get just 2 weeks of training before being thrown into battle. They don't even have proper uniforms or enough weapons. One young soldier told Marshal Marmont, "I would shoot as well as any other soldier if I had someone to load my gun," showing just how unprepared they were. Napoleon himself admits the brutal truth. The young guard melts because so many of these brave teenagers die in the fighting. France is literally sending its children to war because there's nobody else left. Most people think Napoleon should have just retreated and tried to defend Paris directly. But actually, Napoleon sees something his enemies don't. They're making a huge mistake by spreading out their armies. After losing the Battle of La Rotière on February 1st, where 100,000 enemies smashed his 40,000 troops, things look hopeless. But then Field Marshal Blücher makes a critical error. He gets tired of working with the slow Austrian army and decides to move his forces to a different area for better food and shelter during the terrible winter. This splits the enemy armies apart, exactly what Napoleon has been waiting for. He immediately abandons his retreat and rushes toward Blücher's scattered forces with 30,000 men and 120 cannons. His plan is simple but brilliant. Hit each enemy army separately before they can join up again. It's like playing a video game where you fight enemies one at a time instead of letting them gang up on you. Napoleon calls this his central position strategy. Instead of trying to fight everyone at once, he uses France's excellent roads to move his smaller army super fast between widely separated enemy forces. Speed becomes his greatest weapon. Now here's the really interesting part. This strategy only works because the enemy commanders hate each other almost as much as they hate Napoleon. Austria wants to negotiate peace and keep Napoleon on the throne with less power. Russia wants to completely destroy him and take over Europe. This fighting between allies gives Napoleon the opening he needs. In just 6 days, from February 10th to 14th, 1814, Napoleon won 4 battles in a row, like a chess master making perfect moves. On the first day, at Champaubert, he struck fast and crushed 4,000 Russians, losing only 200 men, and even captured the general. The next day at Montmirail, with just 25,000 soldiers against 39,000, he attacked the weak points and won again, costing the enemy 4,000 men. On the third day at Château-Thierry, he chased the retreating armies across a river, killing 4,000 more while losing only 600. Finally, at Vauchamps, the Prussians tried to surprise him, but Napoleon turned the tables. His cavalry charged and broke their lines, causing 10,000 losses, while France lost only 600. In total, his 30,000 men defeated nearly 18,000 to 32,000 enemies, while losing only about 4,000. A stunning record of almost 10 enemies beaten for every French soldier lost. Napoleon won these battles for a few clear reasons. First, his army was much faster, marching long distances, even in freezing mud, so he could surprise enemies and attack where he wanted. Second, he used the land and weather wisely. At Vauchamps, he chose flat fields, perfect for his horsemen to charge and crush the enemy. Third, his enemies made big mistakes. Their armies were spread out and didn't work well together, so Napoleon could fight them one by one. Lastly, he used all parts of his army, soldiers, cannons, and horsemen together. While his soldiers held the enemy, cannons broke their lines, and cavalry chased them down, turning battles into total victories. The sad truth is that Napoleon's 6 days of victories could not save his empire. The first problem was numbers. The enemy had so many soldiers that even losing 30,000 did not matter, while Napoleon could not replace the men he lost. The second problem was goals. The enemies wanted Paris, and while Napoleon won battles in the countryside, other armies kept marching toward the capital. The third problem was politics. When Paris finally fell on March 30th, 1814, the city gave up after only 1 day. Even worse, Napoleon's own marshals refused to fight, and one of them, Marmont, even surrendered his whole army to the enemy. The last problem was war fatigue. After 20 years of battles, the French people and army were tired and only wanted peace. No matter how clever Napoleon was, he could not fight against a nation that wanted the war to end.